Beyond the gates, spoilers tease that tension begins to fracture the quiet veneer of the town long before anyone realizes how deep the wounds already run. Leslie's voice cuts through the murmurs of a cold February morning, her tone laced with something too sweet to be genuine. She spots Nicole outside the florist, a faint smile curling on her lips as she sees the younger woman laughing softly with Carlton. For Leslie, that moment isn't just casual observation, it's ammunition. There's always been something about Nicole that bothers her, something too serene, too untouchable. So when she catches Nicole standing close to Carlton, hands brushing, eyes glinting with something more than friendship, Leslie stores it away like a secret she intends to use. Nicole, on the other hand, is oblivious to the poison brewing in Leslie's smirk. She's still adjusting her jacket, trying to steady her thoughts before Doug's funeral later that day. Doug's death had left a ripple of unease across their small circle, not only because of who he was but because of what his absence stirred in everyone else. Carlton's insistence on attending the service with her feels protective, maybe even gallant, but there's also something territorial about it. Ted had already offered to drive her earlier that morning. She had declined, gently at first, then firmly. When he didn't take the hint, Ted's face had fallen when she told him Carlton would take her instead. That flicker of rejection had twisted into something like shame before he masked it. He wasn't angry, not yet, just hollow. The kind of hollow that grows deeper when you realize someone you care about is slowly drifting toward another orbit. He left without another word, pulling his jacket tighter as he walked toward the parking lot, head bowed against the cutting wind. That's when Leslie appeared. As if the universe had arranged the collision. Her car door slammed behind her just as Ted rounded the corner. He didn't notice her until the impact, her shoulder brushing his arm, the smell of her perfume sharp and calculated. "Oh Ted, I didn't see you there." Her tone carried the perfect mix of surprise and opportunity. Ted blinked, still half lost in thought. "Sorry, Leslie. I wasn't watching where I was going." But Leslie didn't step away. She studied his face, noting the quiet tension behind his eyes. "You look like a man who could use a distraction," she said softly. He didn't answer right away, but when she mentioned Doug's funeral, her expression shifted to something almost sympathetic. "I was heading that way myself," she said. "Vanessa's taking it hard, and I thought, well, it's the least I can do. She helped me when I bought the house across from the Duprees. I owe her that much." Ted hesitated. Nicole's rejection still stung, and the idea of going alone seemed unbearable. Leslie's offer felt like a lifeline, even if he wasn't sure what kind of current it would carry him into. "All right," he said finally. "We can go together." Leslie's smile widened, but not with warmth, more like satisfaction. Hours earlier, before all this unfolded, Leslie had been in her kitchen, a room too pristine to feel lived in. The counters gleamed under the soft yellow light as she carefully placed a homemade cake into a cardboard box. She had spent the better part of the night baking it, not out of kindness but calculation. The cake was meant for Vernon, her new neighbor from across the street. Vernon and his wife, Anita Dupree, had lived in that neighborhood for years. Their family name carried a kind of quiet legacy there. People liked them, trusted them, which irritated Leslie in ways she couldn't quite articulate. She had bought the house opposite theirs for that very reason. Proximity was power. When Leslie showed up at the Dupree's doorstep the previous evening with her perfectly frosted cake, she smiled like a woman extending an olive branch. "I just wanted to say thank you," she told Vernon when he opened the door, "for being patient while I settle in. I know the construction has been a little loud. I promise it won't last long." Vernon accepted the box politely, though his expression flickered with suspicion. Behind him, Anita watched silently, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly. She knew Leslie's type, the kind who made friendliness feel like a trap. When Leslie left, Anita turned to her husband. "You're not really going to eat that, are you?" Vernon chuckled, setting the cake on the counter. "She's trying to make peace, maybe. Let's not overthink it." But Anita didn't buy it. Something about Leslie's tone, the way her smile didn't reach her eyes, felt wrong. If she really wanted peace, Anita said, she wouldn't be tearing that house apart at 7 in the morning. She was right. By dawn, The rumble of machinery began echoing down the street. The walls of Leslie's newly purchased home, the one right across from the Duprees, were being torn down, rebuilt, and painted in strange, almost aggressive colors. It wasn't renovation, it was intrusion. When Vernon mentioned it later, his voice was weary. "I talked to Bill about it," he told Anita over breakfast. "He's looking into what can be done. Noise ordinances, permits, all that." Anita set her coffee down with a quiet sigh. "That's not going to stop her, Vernon. You know it. She's doing this on purpose." "Maybe," he said, staring out the window toward Leslie's house. "But it's not a fight worth starting." He didn't realize the fight had already begun. By the time Ted and Leslie pulled up outside Vanessa's house, the air had turned heavy with the anticipation that always precedes grief. Cars lined the narrow driveway. The sky hung low, the color of ash. Vanessa Dupree was standing near the door, her hands clenched tightly around a folded handkerchief. She looked fragile, all sharp cheekbones and sleepless eyes. Doug had been her brother, and his sudden passing had knocked the foundation out from under her. When she saw Leslie approach, her expression softened with confusion. "Leslie, I didn't think you'd—" "I wouldn't miss it," Leslie interrupted, placing a comforting hand on Vanessa's arm. "Let me be here for you." It was a masterful act. Her voice dripped with empathy, her gaze fixed like a friend's. But behind her polite facade, Leslie was measuring every glance, every whisper in the room. Ted lingered by the entrance, unsure of where to stand. His eyes found Nicole across the living room, sitting beside Carlton. Their shoulders brushed as they spoke quietly, the kind of closeness that made Ted's chest ache. Leslie followed his gaze, her smile curling with satisfaction. "You don't owe her anything, you know," she murmured. Ted looked at her. "Nicole? She's young," Leslie said lightly. "She doesn't understand what loyalty looks like yet." "Don't let her play you like that." He frowned, but he didn't correct her. Maybe she was wrong or maybe she wasn't. Either way, he couldn't deny the sting. Meanwhile, Anita and Vernon had arrived, their faces tight with exhaustion. They greeted Vanessa quietly, offering their condolences before stepping aside. Anita avoided looking at Leslie, but Leslie made sure to catch her eye. "It's good to see you again, Anita," Leslie said, her tone honeyed. "I hope the noise hasn't been too terrible." "I've been telling the workers to keep it down, but you know how men are." Anita's jaw tightened. "It's fine," she said curtly. Leslie tilted her head. "I'm sure it will all be worth it once the mural's done." "Mural?" Anita echoed, brow furrowing. "Oh, I didn't tell you?" Leslie smiled wider. "The wall facing your kitchen window. I'm having an artist paint something special there. A portrait, actually. A tribute to Barbara." The name hit Anita like a physical blow. Her mother's name. "How do you know about Barbara?" she asked quietly. Leslie's expression softened, feigning innocence. "Vanessa mentioned it once, I think. I just thought it might be comforting to have her memory close by." But Anita could hear the lie beneath the words. It wasn't comfort Leslie wanted to give. It was torment. Back at home later that evening, Vernon sat in his study, the dim glow of his desk lamp casting long shadows across the room. The sound of machinery had died down for the night, replaced by the faint hum of the wind through the trees. Anita stood by the window, staring at Leslie's house across the street. "I don't get it," she said softly. "Why would she do that? Why would she bring up my mother?" Vernon leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "Because she wants a reaction. Don't give it to her." But Anita couldn't let it go. "She knows. Somehow, she knows what happened that night. The accident. The guilt." "Stop," Vernon said firmly. "You're letting her in." "That's what she wants." Anita turned toward him, her voice trembling. "You didn't see her face, Vernon." "She looked at me like she already knew everything I've tried to bury." Outside, Leslie stood on her porch, a cup of tea in her hand, watching their silhouettes through the window. The satisfaction that flickered across her face was unmistakable. She didn't just want Anita to feel uncomfortable, she wanted her to unravel. And she was just getting started. The next morning, the noise began again, louder this time. Saw blades shrieked, hammers pounded, and engines roared as if the construction site itself had come alive with malicious intent. Vernon stormed outside, waving down the foreman. "Hey, you can't start work this early." The man shrugged helplessly. "We've got permits." "Talk to the homeowner." Leslie appeared moments later, perfectly put together, as if she had been expecting him. "Is there a problem, Vernon? You're disturbing the entire street," he snapped. "Oh, come now," she said with mock innocence. "It's only temporary. You'll thank me when it's done. The neighborhood could use a little color, don't you think?" He could feel his anger rising, but there was something in her eyes, cold, gleeful, that made him step back. Arguing with her would only make it worse. Inside the Dupree house, Anita sat at the kitchen table, hands clasped tightly. Every sound from across the street felt like a nail being driven into her skull. She imagined the mural Leslie had promised Barbara's face, immortalized on a wall she'd have to see every day. The thought made her stomach twist. When Vernon came back inside, she looked up at him with wide eyes. "She's trying to destroy us." He didn't answer, maybe because deep down, he was starting to believe it too. Later that week, Vanessa invited a few people over for dinner, a small gesture to thank those who had supported her through Doug's passing. Nicole came with Carlton, still distant but polite. Ted arrived alone. Leslie, of course, made sure to sit right beside him. The evening was tense from the start. Conversation skimmed the surface, never daring to dive into the deeper waters everyone was avoiding. When Vanessa brought up Doug's final days, Leslie leaned forward with faint concern, asking questions that were just a bit too probing. "Did he ever say why he went up to the cabin that weekend?" she asked softly. "I heard it wasn't planned." Vanessa's eyes flickered with discomfort. "He just needed space." "Of course," Leslie said, sipping her wine. "We all need space sometimes, especially when we're hiding something." The table fell silent. Even Ted shifted uncomfortably. Carlton frowned. "What are you implying?" "Nothing," Leslie said, smiling. "Just curiosity." Anita shot her a glare from across the table. "You always were curious, Leslie." "Too curious." "Oh, Anita," Leslie purred. "Don't tell me you're still upset about the mural." "It's not even finished yet." "You had no right to paint her," Anita snapped. "You don't know what that name means." Leslie tilted her head. "Maybe not. And it looks an awful lot like you." The words hung in the air like a blade. Vanessa quickly stood, mumbling something about dessert, trying to diffuse the tension. But the damage was done. Later that night, as the guests trickled out, Nicole lingered on the porch with Carlton. "What's wrong with her?" she whispered. "Why does she do this to everyone?" Carlton shook his head. "Leslie feeds on it. The drama, the secrets. It's like oxygen to her." Inside, Ted paused before leaving, glancing back at Leslie as she helped Vanessa clear the table. She looked radiant in the candlelight, charming, composed, untouchable. For a fleeting moment, Ted wondered if everyone had misjudged her. But then she caught his gaze and smiled, that same knowing smile, the one that never reached her eyes. Days passed. The mural went up piece by piece, its image slowly revealing itself to the neighborhood. From a distance, it was almost beautiful, the soft blues and grays forming the outline of a woman's face. But for Anita, each brushstroke felt like an act of violence. She stopped looking out the window altogether. Vernon tried to reassure her, tried to keep her grounded, but even he couldn't ignore the way Leslie's presence seemed to infect everything around them. At night, they would hear faint laughter from across the street, voices drifting from Leslie's backyard, the clinking of glasses, the hum of music. She threw parties often now, always with the lights blazing against the unfinished mural. Anita couldn't sleep. Sometimes she swore she saw movement in the paint, shadows shifting where there shouldn't be any. Once, she thought she heard her mother's voice. And somewhere inside Leslie's house, behind the closed doors of her perfectly decorated rooms, she smiled in the dark. Because the mural wasn't just a painting, it was a reminder. And it was only the beginning. The mural watched over the street like an open wound. Even from afar, the woman's painted eyes seemed to follow Anita wherever she went. It was uncanny, not just in resemblance but in presence. The longer Anita looked, the more convinced she became that Leslie hadn't merely chosen Barbara as a subject, she had summoned her. By the end of that week, the air in the Dupree house felt poisoned. Vernon came home late one evening to find Anita sitting in the dark, her gaze fixed on the curtains that hid the mural from view. "She's doing it on purpose," Anita whispered. "Every time I think about her, I feel her." "My mother." Vernon set his briefcase down. "You need rest, Anita." "No, listen to me." She turned toward him, her voice rising. "That painting, it's not just paint, it's something else. It's pulling her back, or maybe it's pulling me in." Vernon rubbed the back of his neck, frustration creeping in. "You're letting her win? That's what she wants." Leslie feeds off this. But Anita's eyes were haunted. "Then why does it feel like Barbara's voice is coming from across the street?" Vernon didn't have an answer. He wanted to believe it was grief talking, or exhaustion, or the stress of constant provocation. But when he looked through the window that night, he swore he saw a flicker of movement in the mural, as if the eyes of the painted woman blinked. He told himself it was a trick of the streetlight. He didn't really believe it. Ted hadn't spoken to Nicole since the dinner. The tension between them had grown unbearable, thickened by unspoken jealousy and regret. Carlton had become a regular presence by her side, his protectiveness bordering on possessive. Ted threw himself into work, anything to drown out the image of Nicole's smile aimed at someone else. She doesn't know what loyalty looks like yet. And Leslie seemed to sense it. She called him often now, always under some casual pretense. "I could use your opinion," she'd say, "about the color of the fence, or you should see how well the mural's coming along." He tried to resist, but curiosity always won. The first time he visited, he told himself it was harmless, just a neighborly check-in. But Leslie's house was different inside. The walls were lined with old photos that weren't hers, portraits of strangers, some faded, some disturbingly lifelike. The air smelled faintly of incense and turpentine. She poured him a drink, her movements deliberate, almost ritualistic. "Do you believe houses can hold energy?" she asked, eyes fixed on him. Ted hesitated. "You mean like ghosts?" "Not ghosts," she said softly. "Echoes. Things people leave behind when they suffer too much to move on." He didn't answer. The room felt heavier suddenly, as if something unseen was listening. Leslie smiled faintly. "Doug's funeral stirred something, didn't it?" "Grief has a way of opening doors." Her words sent a chill through him. Outside, the mural loomed, half shrouded by scaffolding. From the right angle, it almost seemed alive. Anita's nightmares began soon after. She dreamed of her mother standing in the doorway, eyes hollow, skin gray as ash. In the dreams, Barbara never spoke. She only pointed toward Leslie's house. Each morning, Anita woke drenched in sweat, the echoes of her mother's presence clinging to her. She stopped answering calls. Even Vanessa couldn't get through. One evening, Nicole came by to check on her. "Anita, you look pale," she said gently. "You should see someone." Anita forced a smile. "It's just stress." But when Nicole glanced toward the window, she froze. The mural outside, it looked different now. The face wasn't just Barbara's anymore. The shadows beneath the eyes had deepened, the mouth turned ever so slightly upward, forming something between a smile and a sneer. "Did she change it?" Nicole whispered. Anita shook her head. "No, it changes on its own." Nicole didn't know what to say. She left soon after, her stomach twisted with unease. That night, Leslie stood on her porch, watching Anita's lights flicker on and off. She hummed softly to herself, an old lullaby that only Anita would recognize. By the time March rolled around, the neighborhood felt split in two. On one side, Leslie's house gleamed with fresh paint and constant construction. On the other, the Dupree's home seemed to decay under invisible weight. Vernon's patience finally broke. He marched over one morning, pounding on Leslie's door until she appeared, wrapped in a silk robe, utterly unbothered. "You've gone too far," he said, his voice trembling. "You're tormenting my wife." Leslie tilted her head, feigning confusion. "Tormenting?" "Vernon, it's just a painting." She hears her mother's voice at night. "Well," Leslie said, a smile tugging at her lips, "maybe you should ask yourself why that voice chose to come back now." He stared at her, realizing suddenly that she knew something she shouldn't. "What are you trying to do?" he asked. "Balance," she said simply. "Your wife isn't the only one who's haunted." She closed the door before he could respond. That night, Ted couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Leslie's words, about the way she seemed to know things she had no reason to know. Against his better judgment, he drove past her house. The mural was fully uncovered now. The painted Barbara's eyes glowed faintly under the streetlight, the expression eerily lifelike. Ted stopped the car, staring. For a moment, he thought he saw movement, a flicker in the painted pupils. Then the lights in Leslie's living room came on, and she appeared in the window, smiling directly at him. He drove away without looking back. Inside, Leslie walked slowly to the window, her reflection merging with Barbara's painted gaze. "Almost ready," she whispered. She moved to her study, where a collection of old photographs lay scattered across the desk, some of Doug, some of Anita's mother, some that didn't belong to anyone Ted would recognize. In the corner of the room sat a small wooden box. Inside it were ashes. Barbara's ashes. Leslie traced a finger along the lid. "You shouldn't have left unfinished business," she murmured. "But don't worry, I'll finish it for you." Meanwhile, Nicole's curiosity grew into obsession. She began piecing things together: Doug's mysterious death, Leslie's sudden move across from the Duprees, the strange connection to Barbara's past. She visited Vanessa again, pressing for details. Vanessa hesitated, eyes flickering with something like guilt. "Barbara was my aunt," she finally said. "Anita's mother. When she died, there were rumors that she wasn't alone that night." "Who was with her?" Nicole asked. Vanessa looked away. "Vernon." Nicole's blood ran cold. "It was an accident," Vanessa continued. "At least, that's what they said. But Barbara fell down the stairs after a fight." Anita always blamed herself. She thought her mother was upset because of something she said. But there was more to it. Nicole sat back, her thoughts spinning. Leslie's obsession suddenly made more sense. She wasn't tormenting Anita out of spite. She was digging something up. But why? When she left Vanessa's house, the night air felt wrong, too still. As she reached her car, she caught sight of movement in Leslie's yard. A figure, pale, feminine, standing near the mural. For a split second, she thought it was Leslie. But when the figure turned, Nicole's breath caught in her throat. It was Barbara, or something that looked like her. Nicole backed away, fumbling for her keys. The figure vanished when she blinked, leaving only the faint rustle of wind. The next morning, Ted found Nicole waiting outside his office. "I need your help," she said, her voice low. "It's Leslie. Something's wrong with her." "With that mural?" He frowned. "What do you mean wrong?" "She's using it for something. Vanessa told me about Barbara, Anita's mother. There's a connection. Doug's death, the mural, the nightmares." She trailed off, eyes wide with fear. "It's not random." Ted hesitated. He wanted to dismiss it, but deep down he knew she wasn't wrong. They decided to confront Leslie together. When they arrived, the house was eerily silent. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the smell of paint and incense was stronger than ever. Candles burned along the hallway, their flames flickering despite the still air. "Leslie," Ted called out. No answer. They followed the faint sound of humming, the same lullaby Anita had described, to the back room. Leslie was standing in front of the mural, her hands pressed against the painted surface. Her eyes were closed, her lips moving in a whisper. "Leslie, stop!" Nicole shouted. Leslie turned slowly, her face illuminated by candlelight. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. "It's almost done." "What is?" Ted demanded. "The return." The mural pulsed, actually moved, the painted eyes shifting as if something beneath the surface was alive. Nicole gasped, stepping back. "Barbara wants to come home," Leslie said. "She never got justice. But she will now." Ted reached for her, but the air seemed to thicken between them, a wave of heat rolling out from the wall. The candles flared. Leslie's body tensed, her voice rising in an otherworldly tone. "She knows what they did to her." The mural's surface rippled, and a faint scream echoed through the room, distant yet unmistakably human. Nicole dragged Ted toward the door, but Leslie didn't move. Her eyes were wide, locked on the wall as cracks spread through the paint like veins. When they stumbled outside, the night sky was glowing faintly red. The following day, news spread fast. Leslie's house had caught fire. No one saw her escape. By the time the flames died, the mural was gone, reduced to ash. The Duprees watched from their window as the fire trucks pulled away. Anita felt no relief, only emptiness. But that night, as the smoke cleared, Vernon noticed something horrifying. The wall of their own house, the one facing the ashes of Leslie's home, bore faint traces of paint. Shapes. A face beginning to take form. Barbara's face. Weeks passed, but peace never returned. Ted moved away, unable to shake the memory of what he'd seen. Nicole stopped answering calls. Vanessa kept the curtains drawn, whispering that she sometimes heard humming through the walls. Anita tried to pretend everything was normal, but the more she tried, the worse it got. The faint colors on their wall darkened day by day, no matter how often they washed or painted over them. Vernon insisted it was a chemical reaction from the fire. But Anita knew better. One night, she woke to the sound of someone whispering her name. When she turned on the light, the wall across from her bed shimmered faintly, the unfinished face smiling back at her. She screamed for Vernon, but by the time he entered, the image was gone. He held her until she stopped trembling. "It's over," he whispered. "Leslie's gone." But Anita only shook her head. "You don't understand. Leslie was just the messenger." Spring came, but the neighborhood never recovered. People avoided that street. The Dupree house was marked in quiet ways: rumors, stories, a sense that something unseen still lingered. One afternoon, Vanessa visited Anita for the first time since the fire. She brought flowers, though both women knew they wouldn't change anything. They sat together in silence for a while before Vanessa finally said, "You should know. They found something in Leslie's basement." Anita looked up sharply. "What?" "A box," Vanessa said, "with ashes inside." They tested it. It was Barbara's. Anita's throat closed. "Then she had them all along." The room fell silent. Outside, the wind stirred, carrying faint traces of smoke and paint. That evening, when Vanessa left, Anita stood before the wall one last time. The face had faded now, only faint outlines left, but she could still see the eyes watching. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for everything." A breeze moved through the house, gentle, almost forgiving. For the first time in months, Anita felt warmth instead of dread. But as she turned away, the faintest sound echoed behind her. A soft laugh. Not cruel, not human, just there. And in the fading light, the colors on the wall darkened again, just enough for the painted eyes to open. Months later, when new owners moved into the burned lot across the street, they decided to rebuild. The workers tore down the last of the damaged structure, uncovering a single section of intact wall buried beneath the debris, a wall that bore the faint outline of a woman's face. The new owners painted over it. But sometimes, at night, the paint peeled back and the eyes underneath still gleamed.